Well, it's a pleasure now to be joined here on GCR by the head football coach at Vanderbilt, where he's had an awful lot of success and kind of a connection that continues to grow between he and the Baltimore Ravens, as he's had some pretty close relationships with important people here. He's Coach Clark Lee, and he is with us now here on GCR. Coach, it's Glenn in Baltimore. It's great to chat with you. Thank you so much for taking the time for us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Glenn. It's great to be with you.
There's so many things I want to talk about with you, Coach. Can I just start going back a couple years? And if I just ask broadly, when did you know how special Kyle Hamilton was?
Well, I mean, honestly, when I watched this high school film, and at the time he wasn't necessarily a highly regarded recruit, I thought I was out of my mind. I mean, it was probably the best tape I've watched from a safety in a long time. And sure enough, I mean, he got his recruiting due as the year went, but it didn't take long when he showed up on campus. He arrived in the summer, and I think the first day of training camp, he had 3 interceptions, and the rest was kind of history. But what a special guy, what a special person first. And obviously he's one of one as a player and a guy that I've got a ton of respect for, and I'm grateful that our paths crossed when they did.
He told me a really hilarious story. On his 21st birthday, he said he went to a gas station and bought a single beer and then said, nah, I don't really want this all that much, and didn't even drink it. He's different. Yeah, can I just to follow up on him, because we're obviously going to get to Jesse and to Diego, but what's interesting to me whenever we talk about Kyle Hamilton is, like, we're in Baltimore, we had stats that could define the greatness of Ed Reed. There's no, like, stat that defines Kyle Hamilton's greatness, and yet we all know, like, we all just watching the game can see it. How do you define what makes Kyle Hamilton so great, Coach?
Well, there are physical tools he has, the length, and when you have length, a lot of times you're giving up something with respect to balance and body control, but he actually has it all. And I mean, again, that's a gift he's had for a long time, and showed up on his high school film. But when you're that big and that rangy, you cover a lot of space without having to be hip to hip with someone. And so he's a player that an offense has to know where he is every single snap. And what we tried to do with him when I was at Notre Dame was give him the best possible impact on each play that we could, make sure that he could show up around the ball. We could funnel the ball to him. We could blitz him. We could do things with him. And that's what he's continued as a member of the Ravens is, he can play high, he can play down, obviously as kind of a nickel or a star. He can blitz, he can cover. There's just not a whole lot he can't do. And even if he's not in on a play, he's impacting the play just because an offense has to know where he is because of how dynamic he is.
That's exactly right. I mean, it really is remarkable to see. Coach, I know that you've spent an awful lot of time in recent years talking about Diego, and I'm sure this question has been asked you a billion times, so we'll be the billion and first. Who really is Diego Pavia? We all see the way that he's portrayed in the media, but we don't know him. He's only been around for a day or two here in Baltimore to this point. We know how good of a football player he is and how much he did for your program. Who really is Diego Pavia?
Well, I mean, this is a story that everyone is going to feel close to. I mean, he's a guy that's been counted out his entire competitive career. He's had to earn it the hard way. He's won everywhere he's been. This goes back to being a state champion wrestler, a national champion at NIMI in football, winning 10 games at New Mexico State, helping us win 10 games here at Vanderbilt. So he's a chip on the shoulder guy who really is a quiet connector. He builds meaningful relationships, galvanizes the locker room, shows up in support of the people he loves and cares about, and obviously isn't afraid to state his own confidence when that time comes too. And, I think I always say this when talking about him, the world doesn't need a watered down Diego Pavia. I mean, this is a guy who lives with great integrity. He believes in himself. He has confidence. He walks the walk and he talks the talk. And, all that combined is what allowed them to have such an incredible impact here. He's a guy that my own children see him as a brother. We are texting and talking often, and those calls or texts always end up with "love you" and "appreciate you." And this is a guy who cares much and feels much. I mean, he's the real deal, and I'm so glad to see him get an opportunity because he's earned this, and to have it be with the Ravens is obviously extra meaningful to me.
Coach Clark Lee from Vanderbilt is with us here on GCR. Coach, I'm sure that again, we're not breaking ground when I ask that when people refer to Diego as but he's got to be a distraction, and for a rookie and someone who's fighting for a roster spot, is that too much? What say you about the idea that Diego's personality and the way that he handles himself is a distraction to a football team?
Well, I would say that my experience with him is the exact opposite. And when he's in process and in his routines, he's an engine that runs that, like I said earlier, galvanizes a football team. We had a couple of growth moments here where, he shared his confidence publicly and at one point on a pretty prominent podcast, and that led to a conversation between he and I, where he understood, the need to be respectful and to not, step across those boundaries with respect to creating distraction for team. But the truth is, for our program, we don't need to sit quietly in the corner. We need to stand up, and we need to talk about our belief in what we're doing and the confidence we have. And so in so many ways, in that moment where he was speaking on behalf of the team, his teammates actually appreciated what he said because we're fighting for relevancy in our game, and we have a deep belief and conviction in what we're doing here at Vanderbilt. And he was willing to state that publicly in a way that again galvanized his teammates. There have been other moments where he's reacted emotionally in moments that, and said things that crossed lines. And when he's done that, he's taken ownership and he's redirected. I think most people that don't want to judge, that don't just want to judge everything, they understand it as human. It's relatable. We all make those mistakes. And here's a guy who, again, he cares so much about what he's doing. He cares so much about what he's a part of. And he's competitive. And so I think that can be misunderstood very easily. I do understand, with respect to his road in the NFL is going to be the same road he's plotted for himself in his college career. And that's, he's got to earn it. He's got to go and play a role. He's got to dedicate and devote himself to that role and show that he can function at the highest possible level. And he understands that means that he can't be creating headlines, that he needs to be humble and hardworking and do the little things the right way. But there's nothing that leads me to believe that Diego will do anything but that. And beyond that, I will never, ever count this guy out. I mean, he is just, his story is a remarkable story of perseverance, belief, resilience. I'm just so excited to see him start in this journey in the NFL.
It's interesting, Coach, because this is a city where we're okay with bravado, right? Like, this is the city of Ray Lewis and Tony Siragusa, right? And like, this is a city that I think can embrace that chip on your shoulder mentality, a city that's often overlooked. So I think that part of it, it's easy to say, okay, I think he might fit in really well here. You reference maybe some of the mistakes. I know the story this week got a lot of traction about him admitting to maybe oversleeping before the Alabama game and missing warm-ups. How much of that was real that you would have to deal with? How much of that maybe refers to what you said? Like, there were mistakes. Young people make mistakes. He's going to learn. He's going to grow from those types of things.
Yeah, well, first of all, there was no world that existed where he overslept and missed warm-ups. I mean, I think what you're referencing, he took a nap on the bus ride to the Alabama game. We were on the road, and I think he felt like, we had an hour trip, and I think he felt like that nap, which is not uncommon to have happen, was disruptive to his routine. And we talked about that.
Thank you.
The next day. But some of these things sometimes, I think, and obviously, Glenn, this is not a statement in terms of your question, because I get it. I mean, those things need to be asked about. They need to be explored. But I think so often anymore, these things take on these extreme perspectives. Like Diego was such a steady and consistent member of our program. He was not perfect, and I think in so many ways he had to navigate what became, popularity and celebrity in a city that, that can in Nashville can blow up on you pretty quick, where you have other celebrities, reaching out and wanting to connect. He formed a friendship with Johnny Manziel that I think in a lot of ways was built on just kind of a relatability and another guy that felt like he had been counted out his whole life. Those things were innocent from my perspective. And again, they weren't distractions for us. I never worried about where Diego was. I never worried about him undercutting our mission. I never concerned myself with him not being in his process. And he was great in communicating where he felt. Not only was he responsible for himself, but I mean, he was a great leader for our program. This is a two-time captain that really, when I felt like things were off, which is inevitable for any team, you're going to have moments where you're not sure where the pulse of the locker room is and where the focus of the team is. That's the first person I went to, and if I had a concern about a player in particular, that's the first person I went to. It's Diego, because he would know and have a pulse. If you follow this guy into the building, he is going to talk to everyone he comes across. That means you could be the starting receiver, the starting center, or the sixth string walk-on kicker. He's going to dap you up, hug you up, talk to you, hang out with you. He's got a great appreciation for the people that surround him, and really my experience with him has been that is how he lives his competitive life out. And I think moments where he's been distracted, or moments where he's made headlines, so often come in the times of year where we're not engaged in the playing of football. And so when he is in routine and when he is in process, he's as good as anyone I've ever been around. And I think development for him and growth for him is just to apply that to 365 days a year. And that's going to allow him to take on any role the Ravens, see fit for him. And I believe as he adjusts to the roles, that in time that he'll find his way on the field and impact winning.
Coach, I appreciate that. I'm probably guilty of just reading the way that someone else wrote about his comments, and I appreciate you clarifying those for me. The size thing, everybody talks about it too. Why we know how good Diego was. We all watched.
Yeah.
Why didn't it matter? Why was he able to overcome the size, and why might he be uniquely able to overcome that at the NFL level in a way that maybe other quarterbacks aren't?
Well, he was able to do it in the SEC, which again, the NFL is a totally different level. So I have a great respect for the size and speed, the length in that league. And why it is the best in the world. This is a totally different journey for him. But I think there were a lot of people that doubted his abilities to do it here. He was able to do it here. I think his play and performance strengthened the other 10 guys on the field offensively, and honestly strengthened the other 21 guys that were playing on offense and defense based off his competitive personality, but also his ability to get us into good plays, his ability to eliminate post-snap decisions, pre-snap, read coverage shells, and the study of film. I mean, I think this guy really developed as a quarterback, and he'll have to continue that development to adjust to the size, speed, and length of the NFL. I think he is big enough. I think he's got enough arm strength. I think that all the things that he needs are in him. What will separate him at that level, just like it separated him here, is what is between his ears. And not only is it an elite competitive mindset, it's a very smart football player too, who find ways to elevate the people around them. And again, here's a guy that, if football is being played, it doesn't matter if it's, in the summer, in the spring, or, week 8. This guy is going to be at his competitive best. He's going to have fun. He's going to be on the field talking trash and getting other people rallied in the best of ways. I mean, Again, he's a guy that you want on your team when you're fighting for a playoff spot and everyone else is fizzling out. This guy's going to be stepping in and doing the things he needs to do to bring others with him. So, my belief in him is such that I believe he overcomes these physical limitations. I mean, he knows exactly what they are. When you meet Diego, he's got big features, he's got a big head, big shoulders, big hands. He's a physical player. He may not be as tall as some, but he's a very durable athlete, and he proved that as the quarterback at Vanderbilt. I think he'll prove that in the NFL as well.
You're spending just a couple more minutes with Clark Lee, Vanderbilt football coach here on Glenn Clark Radio. Coach, obviously your relationship with Jesse Minter, you've talked about how deep your friendship is. We got to know him a little bit, obviously, when he was around the first time, but we're getting to know him more now. What should we know about what Jesse Minter might bring as a head coach in the NFL?
Well, first of all, I appreciate you guys letting me borrow him for a year. I remember interviewing Jesse. I flew to Baltimore and had a chance to visit him at home, and you guys were still in your season. But what struck me, I didn't know Jesse at the time. We had kind of some loose connections, and what struck me about Jesse, even in his home on the interview, was this guy he could think on his feet. He was an elite communicator. There was nothing that was overly dramatized. He just was so confident, so able to kind of speak into existence the things that were within him. I thought there was a lot of alignment for us on how the game should be played, how the game should be taught, or the importance of relationships. And when he came, we obviously were not ready to be competitive in the SEC. You couldn't have convinced me of that. I was learning on the move too, but I was so impressed with how Jesse evolved as a coordinator throughout the season, the way he was able to organize his staff to be efficient. I just felt like there was such growth and learning going on. He always had an instinct for play calling, and I felt like that allowed us to win games that, we won 2, and both of them we were fighting tooth and nail to the end, but subtle adjustments he'd made, subtle calls he'd make, ways that he could kind of anticipate what was next offensively. I thought that gave us a chance to win those games. It gave us a chance to stay competitive in games where we really were outclassed on the field in terms of talent. And then the other thing that just so impressed me was, as the year wasn't going well, he never lost his energy, his enthusiasm, his confidence. And he was as good as any coach that I've been around at contextualizing the moment for the team. So when he had a message for the unit, he would always share something that I think provided perspective and gave them a great opportunity to go and attack the day and elevate performance.
That sounds really good. A lot has been made about him, the modern coaching concept, right? And
yes,
my friend Josh Bynes, who's on staff in Seattle with Mike McDonald, says, boy, they really are as similar as you think they are, because they just meet guys where they are. How much of that did you get to know about Jesse, and how unique might it be, and different than perhaps like the old school in-your-face ball coach type that a lot of us, I'm in my 40s, that's what I think of when I think of football coaches. How different might it be with Jesse in this role?
Yeah, super engaged. Like, he is super engaged with his team, with his players, with his family, honestly, and just like you when he coaches, you see all his roles, being husband, father, coach. Like, they all surface in the way he relates to people and takes care of people. He's just smart, and I think what the modern coach understands is our role is about impact. It's about aligning people and galvanizing people to do something that, maybe that they can't do on their own, but they can do as a part of a group. And he has a unique ability, and Mike has this ability too. Again, I've got the great fortune of through Jesse being connected to some really incredible coaches, and my relationship with Mike is one that I value, and watching him operate is so impressive. These guys are very smart. They're very smart. They have really good people skills, and when it comes to the football that's being played, they are extremely skilled at the tactical parts of the game. And when I took the defense over here in 24, I went out to LA probably 4 times just to hang with Jesse and to pick his brain. And those were, in so many ways, as you mentioned, this is, one of my closest friends in coaching, but I've learned so much from him, and so much of what he's learned over the last few years, he's been willing to pass along to me. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm so excited for him. I know this is a new challenge, and like any new challenge, there's going to be unseen adversity ahead. But this is a really smart guy who treats people the right way, who is a very skilled football coach, who I believe will be wildly successful in Baltimore.
I know I need to let you go because I kept you long, Coach, but I have to ask you this question because, as you would imagine, last year with football fans in this area watching what you were doing at Vanderbilt, obviously what Kurt did at Indiana, Maryland football fans are saying, why can't that be us? Why can't it be the next sort of program that is an afterthought that is able to make that jump? So I know that if I ask you this question, you'd say it might take 6 hours to explain it. But how? How does it happen at a place like that? How can programs that just don't have the history and the power of the top programs in the country make the type of rise that you were able to do over the course of the last couple of years at Vanderbilt?
Well, I wish I was as good as Kurt is, because he did his a lot faster and I've done mine. But I will tell you that I think the starting point for success is alignment. And I happen to work for a chancellor here that has just an incredibly aggressive vision for our university, but specifically for athletics and how the football program fits into that vision. He is the smartest guy I know, and I'm grateful that not only is my boss, but he's a fan of football, and he's been helpful to us. And then I work for Candace Lee, who I think is the best leader in athletics. If you pay attention to what we're doing in all sports right now, I mean, you understand that Candace is an energy force. She understands the human parts of this so well, and has convictions about what we're doing. And so in moments where we were, having trouble getting off the ground in the first 3 seasons, she was paying attention to the things we were doing well, the foundation we were putting in place. And, she was confident in standing next to me and saying, hey, this is my coach and we're going to see this through. And I'll never forget that level of partnership. I think the other thing that you referenced, which I think captures what college athletics is now, certainly college football, is we've incurred a great disruption here over the last 6 years in transfer portal and NIL. And I think it's reformed how rosters are shaped, and given opportunity to programs that haven't been successful in the past to take advantage of disruption. I think those that have relied upon certain methodology, they can't own that space altogether anymore. We all have a chance. And then the other thing is as much as NIL and transfer portal can be tools for success, I think they also can be traps. And so, program building is more challenging now than it's ever been. And I'd like to think that, we're doing those things well. We're building healthy environment and culture, and we're trying to play really good football here. And we're just doing it year in, year out, trying to elevate our personnel. And I think I'm still young in this. This is my 6th season as a head coach. I learn every year something new, and as I grow, the program grows. And so I just got to keep a focus on that. And I would say that's true at any of these places that are experiencing success for the first time. I think there's real advantage being taken care of, or taken advantage of the landscape, the changes, the disruption, and then there's healthy teams being built where we can still have a focus on something bigger than any one individual.
It's incredible to behold, man. It's incredible to see what it is that you're doing at a place like that. And, everybody up here is hoping that maybe Coach Loxley can figure out a way to follow in those footsteps. Coach, and also I know that you've been recruiting the Eastern Shore of Maryland, too. You got a couple of guys, Bryson among down there, which is cool to see. Coach, I know I kept you really long. Awesome stuff. Thank you for taking the time for us. We're looking forward to getting to know Diego better in the coming weeks and months. Appreciate you telling us a little bit more about him today.
Hey, my pleasure, Glenn, and thanks for the time and attention on our program too. Much appreciated, and we'll be back up there recruiting. But certainly, you got a bunch of Ravens fans here in Nashville.